Let's go ahead and have a seat and take a moment to get centered in. So just finding that really comfortable, steady seat. So a couple of you probably already know this, but if you didn't, here's a little known fact. The word asana that you hear in all of the names actually means pose. People think asana is pose, but it also means seat. And in the Yoga Sutras, the first thing it talks about is finding a steady, comfortable asana. So it doesn't just necessarily mean the pose, it means finding a steady, comfortable seat. So that's how we start, so that we can just take a moment and check in with our bodies. So feel into every part of your anatomy and just be mindful of what feels tight or stiff or anything different. And then also really notice the parts that are just humming along smoothly. Pay attention to the parts of you that don't require extra care. It's nice to just take a moment in gratitude for everything functioning. And then let's start breathing a little deeper and slower. Just notice your thoughts, your emotions, your energy. And we'll go ahead and bring our palms together in front of our hearts and prepare for intention setting. So each of us has our own needs, and we get to be clear about those before we begin our practice. So set an intention that truly serves you. And when you're clear about that, take a deep inhale and sigh. All right, let's roll our shoulders back a couple of times and just transition onto our hands and knees to loosen up our spine a little bit. So just doing some traditional cat-cows, arching and rounding. Also bringing in a little bit of lateral movement or even circling the hips if that's something that your body needs. And then when you feel like you're ready on an exhale, just take that first child's pose. Let the back round and lengthen a little bit. We'll scoot into a Sphinx pose to lengthen out the low back. Just really pulling with our forearms and making sure that our glutes, our back sides are totally relaxed so that we can get some length in the spine. And then let's take our first downward facing dog. Plant your hands nice and firm and reach the tailbone up and back. Just really stretch back. Broaden the shoulders, lengthen the spine, press the heels down. And then walk your feet forward slowly. Keep your knees bent. Just dangle in your ragdoll. One more breath here. And then on your next inhale, reach the arms all the way up and overhead. And exhale, palms together in front of the heart. Let's inhale, reach the arms up, stretch up. And as you exhale, hinge at your hips, fold forward. Bring your fingertips down to the ground, regardless of how deep you need to bend your knees, and keep your hands, or at least the fingertips, down as you lengthen your spine. Fold all the way forward again. And then let's take a big step back with our left foot. So knowing that inner thighs and a little bit of outer hips are the emphasis for your practice, I'd like you to just kind of take a moment in this first lunge and explore that a little bit. I know a lot of times we use this for a warm up, so we just kind of mindlessly hang out here until the next pose. I would love for you, if it feels okay in your body, to think about ever so slightly pressing your right knee forward while you press your left heel back. You'll instantly start to feel a little more stretch and separation between the thighs. Make sure it's an appropriate amount. You don't want to overdo. We're just getting started. But kind of get into that and allow the pelvis to drop a little bit more if you can. We'll go ahead and put the left knee down now. Bring your right hand to the inside of your right knee. Literally put your hand on your knee. Roll onto the outside edge of your right foot and then gently apply pressure, just gently. So you're just kind of waking up, in this case, your right inner thigh. You might feel this in the right outer hip. All of that's good. Take a couple more breaths. And then we're just going to extend the right leg. So you can rock your hips back. Try and get your right leg straight. Flex the right ankle and toes if possible, and then maybe even extend your spine. So you know everything's connected. So we want our hamstring to be a little bit supple as well. It's not like we can lengthen the inner thigh muscles without lengthening the back of the thigh. So it's all going to get worked. And then let's go ahead and bend the right knee. Bring the arms up and overhead, tilt the pelvis back, and let the hips move forward until we feel this in the front of the left hip. From here, we'll bring the hands down. Those of you that do vinyasas, you can start taking them now anytime I say child's pose. You are free to go. The rest of us are going to actually take our right knee back and take that child's pose. Scoot forward into Sphinx, lengthening the torso again. You're also welcome to do a low cobra if that feels good. If you're doing vinyasas, you're welcome to do upward facing dog. I trust you guys to just listen to your body and do what it wants. And then let's move into downward facing dog so that we can go ahead and proceed to the other side. So from here, take a huge step forward with your left foot. And now we're in a left foot forward lunge. So kind of the way we did on the other side, we're just gonna ease into this, but start playing with inner thighs a little. We wanna make sure that the left shin is vertical. So when we press the left knee forward, I mean, it might not even be visible or noticeable. It's just more of a sensation. Left knee is moving forward a little bit, but the right heel is pressing back. And maybe the hips are dropping a little more. And that instantly kicks into sensation in the thighs. We're separating the thighs. One more breath here. And then we'll drop that right knee down and bring the left hand onto the inside of the left knee. Roll to the outside of the left foot. And then gently apply a little bit of pressure with your left hand. So we're just trying to feel that left inner thigh, maybe the left outer hip. Good. And then from here, extend your left leg. We'll flex the left ankle and toes and create a little bit of length in our left hamstring. One more breath here. And then let's bend the left knee. Bring the arms up and overhead. We're tucking our tailbone under and letting the hips move forward. You should feel the front of your right hip here. Hands come down, step forward to your standing forward bend. And then inhale, reach the arms all the way up and overhead. Stretch up. Exhale, palms together in front of the heart. All right, we're about to do some yogic squats. People with knee issues, I expect you to really pay attention to your knees, so don't do anything that doesn't feel good to you. Please support your weight on your thighs if you need to. What we're doing is working the inner outer hips a little bit here, so you're going to kind of feel the difference. But that doesn't mean that you have to go deep into the squat to get there. So the first one that we're going to do is feet about the width of the mat, toes pointing directly forward. Even if you usually kind of fudge on this one a little bit and let your feet wing out, don't, because we're going to do that on purpose in a second. So your toes are directly forward, your feet are parallel, your heels are flat. And you just start to poke your tailbone back and down, only as far as you can go. If you have limited mobility at your ankles, you may not get very far. If your knees are tweaky, you might be hanging out like you see me right now, just resting your weight on your thighs. That's enough, you guys. Only if it feels okay should you drop the buns all the way down. We're just gonna take a couple more breaths here. Be very mindful of keeping your feet parallel. And then go ahead and come all the way up. By the way, anybody that needs to do a standing tail wag, you may do that. Now, all you're gonna do is keep your heels where they're at, but for some of you, this is like, oh, thank heaven, she's actually gonna let me let my feet wing out. Yes, angle the toes out to the side now. It's a little bit different for everybody. Wherever your toes are going, your knees need to go. So adjust the feet to accommodate the knees. Same thing, heels are flat, and we just start to stick the tailbone down and back. Support your weight on your thighs if you need to, or allow the hips to drop. No matter what you're doing, you're gonna feel a big difference in this squat from the first one. Now you should feel some really tightening or contracting at the outer thigh and hip, and more opening in the inner thigh. Let's go ahead and come all the way back up. Do your standing tail wag if you need to. Now we're gonna bring the feet maybe 8 inches apart. So sit bone distance apart, 6 to 8 inches apart. Feet point directly forward. This is more challenging for those of you that are being careful with your knees. You're gonna have to really lean forward when you stick your bum out. If you have the mobility to go all the way down, you're gonna have to stick your arms out in front. That's what I do. So the idea is this. You poke your tailbone back and you start to squat. And you keep your feet close together and pointing forward. Now you shouldn't feel it in the inner or outer thighs. You should just feel it in your bum. So we're stretching the glutes. Take one more breath. Good. Inhale, arms come all the way up as we stand up. Exhale, palms together in front of the heart. So you can kind of understand how the width of the feet and the orientation or angle of the feet and thighs makes a difference in the muscles that are activated. Let's play with it a little more. Inhale, reach the arms up and stretch. Exhale, fold all the way forward. Look up halfway, lengthen, and then back down. We're gonna step back with the left foot. So we're back in a right foot forward lunge. Go ahead and drop your left knee down. Bring your right hand to the inside of your right foot. We're gonna come onto our left forearm. If you need to, you can come onto a block. You don't have to go all the way down. Now, if you can, you start moving your right forearm towards the floor, but it's okay if it doesn't get there. The first thing I want you to do is hug your right inner thigh into your torso, or think of it as hugging your knee in, but you can't use your right hand to do it. I want you to use your inner thigh muscles. They're working now. And kind of pull your right hip back and your left hip forward. So if you're doing this and you're really keeping that right leg up against your torso, your inner thigh is working right now. And now we're going to give it a holiday. So walk your right foot all the way over to the right side of the mat, and then let the right toes angle out and hang out here for a moment. In this position, you might not feel anything. It's real different. If you want, purely optional, keep the left forearm down. You can put your right hand on the inside of your right thigh and kind of roll to the outside edge of that right foot and do a much wider variation of that inner thigh press that we sometimes do when we're kneeling. Take one more breath. And then just bring your hands back down onto the mat. You can move back into child's pose, or you're welcome to do vinyasas. While you're in your child's pose, you might notice that things feel a little different in that right hip, left hip. So the right side for me feels warmer and looser already. We'll go ahead and move into Sphinx or low cobra. And then press into a downward facing dog. Take a moment to stretch. Again, here, if you really tune into your body, you might feel the difference between the left side and the right side. You might not feel the difference, and that's also fine. Big step forward with your left foot. Just hold your lunge for a moment, and then drop your right knee. Keep your left foot exactly where it is. Bring your left hand inside the left foot. Come on to your right forearm or a block. And then see if the left forearm can at least start reaching down towards the ground. And the idea is to really hug your left inner thigh in towards your torso. Left hip pulls back a little bit. Your left inner thigh is working very hard right now. So part of what we do when we're trying to do these releases is we contract and work and contract and work, and then we allow it to stretch and release. And that's what we're going to do now. As you take your left foot to the left side of the mat, let the left knee and foot angle open a little bit and just notice how different that feels. Purely optional if you want to put your left hand inside the left thigh and kind of roll onto the outside edge of the foot. Maybe you want to do that, maybe you don't. And then from here, we'll come back up onto our hands, and we're just going to step forward to a standing forward bend. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, palms together in front of the heart. So turn sideways on your mat. Take that wide side step that we normally take for our warrior series. And we're just going to play with that for a moment. So turn left toes in, right toes out, and bend your right knee to find your warrior two today. That same sort of knee press action, tractioning that we do is what we're going to do first. Right hand inside the right thigh. Left hand slides down towards the left ankle, and then you press your right arm straight. If you need to, you can move your right hand higher up the inside of the right thigh. Take one more breath. Come back up and straighten your right leg. Arms are out to the side, left hip kicks to the left. Lengthen your rib cage to the right, and right here, just make sure your right leg is straight. You want to start feeling that right inner thigh. And then if you can, tighten the top of your right thigh. That's your quadricep. That helps the hamstring release. And then just find your triangle pose. Hold that for a couple of breaths. And then I'm just going to have you bring your left hand down. Rotate your right foot in. So if you did it in that order, both hands are over by your right foot right now. Just bend into your right knee a little bit. Left leg stays straight. And then straighten your right knee, walk your hands over to your left foot, just bend into your left knee a little bit. Bring your hands to the center. Right knee bends a little deeper, left inner thigh should stretch. Come up, left knee bends a little deeper, right inner thigh should stretch. Come back to the center and come up to standing. Now we do the other side. Right foot rotates in, left foot rotates out, warrior two. And we move into that tractioning move. Left hand is on the inside of the left thigh. Right hand is going to come down towards your right ankle. And then you press your left arm straight. Remember, you can move it higher up the inside of your left thigh if you like, but keep your left arm straight. Take one more breath here. Come back up, straightening your left leg. Arms are out to the side. Right hip moves to the right. We lengthen, right? We're trying to make sure our left leg stays straight. And then if you can, tighten the top of your left thigh, your left quadriceps. That causes your reflex release in the hamstring. And then find your triangle pose on this side. We're going to do the same thing again. I'm going to have you bring your right hand down. Just rotate your left foot in. So you got both hands over by your left foot right now. Bend your left knee. Straighten your left knee. Walk your hands to your right foot. Bend your right knee. Come back to the center with both legs straight. Now, we'll be mindful of knee issues here, of course. But the first thing I want you to do is just rotate the right foot out a little bit, enough that your knee can comfortably follow the angle of the toes. Move your hands towards your right foot again and start to bend the right knee. When you begin to feel a stretch in your left inner thigh, see if you can rotate the left toes towards the ceiling. And this might be it for you. By the way, your right heel needs to stay flat, just like in a yogic squat. A couple of you guys may be able to release and bring your palms to prayer, but don't feel like you have to. It's just like in a yoga squat. Keep your heel flat, get the stretch, and don't worry what it looks like. So let's go ahead and straighten the right leg now. Hands are to the mat. We're going to walk over towards the left foot and rotate those toes out a comfortable amount and start bending into the left knee. And you might keep your hands here, and this might be it, and it's enough. If you're getting pretty far down, rotate right toes towards the ceiling, keep that left heel flat, and then see if maybe the hands come off the ground. And if not, don't worry about it. This is really all about stretching out, in this case, our right inner thigh. Good. Go ahead and put the right foot back down. Walk your hands back to the center. Take the feet wider, wider, wider. I promise you I will not ask you to go into Bakasana, which is frog pose. You have my word, so don't hold back. Take your feet as wide as you comfortably can, and then hinge at your hips and either fold forward, relax the neck, let the head hang, put your hands on the ground or put your forearms on the ground. We're going to take 2 more breaths here. And then all I want you to do is toe heel your feet all the way in. Big inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, palms together in front of the heart. Pause for a moment. You should be feeling some inner thigh stuff happening, yeah? Well, we're not quite done. Now we're going to take a moderate side step. So my feet are a little wider than my shoulders, but not crazy wide, because it's just a standing variation of a frog. This is way more friendly to the knees if you have knee issues. So now you're going to rotate your feet out a pretty fair amount, but again, you still want your knees to be able to follow them. We're gonna try as much as possible and keep our torso vertical. We're gonna bend the knees a little bit and then start using outer hip muscles to push the knees towards the little toes and maybe even our hands to press the inner thighs back or away from each other. Take a couple of breaths here. And come on up and you can rotate your toes forward. What you should have felt is this outer hip and thigh area was really clenching and tightening. When that happens, it causes a reflex release in the inner thighs. So it's actually a good thing. In fact, it's such a good thing, we're gonna do it one more time. Let's go ahead and rotate the toes out again. You should already feel your buns clench when you do that, right? And then you're gonna bend your knees. Strongly engage the outer thigh and hip muscles to make those knees press back. Try and stay relatively vertical. Squat down and press with your hands if you can. 2 breaths. And straighten your legs. Bring your feet all the way together and come back to the front of the mat. Take a super big inhale, reach the arms up. As you exhale, fold forward. Relax your neck. Take a couple of breaths here in your forward bend. It should feel pretty good. And then from here, you can just step back onto your hands and knees and take a child's pose. Those of you doing vinyasas, off you go. In your child's pose, you're going to feel some of those muscles that were just tightening, lengthening. So take that extra breath if you need it. And then we'll scoot forward into either Sphinx or Cobra. And then downward facing dog. From your down dog, walk your feet forward again. Standing forward bend, inhale the arms up. And exhale, palms together in front of the heart. So now we're going to give a little bit of love to these outer hips and thighs that we're working so hard. We're just going to do a little bit of an outer hip stretch. If you have kind of wobbly balance today, and we all have those days, please feel free to be near something. It's not a one-legged balance pose, but it can be a little precarious. So if you need to be near a wall or a piece of furniture, go for it. And I will mirror you guys. So the first thing you're going to do is take your right foot behind your left foot, and ideally both feet are flat on the ground. So, and both legs are straight. All of that kind of makes a difference. Then you're going to make sure that your hips kind of stay squared off. So when you step your right foot back, what happens is the right hip wants to kind of rotate. I prefer that you pull your right hip forward and your left hip back. Then you're going to put your left hand on your hip and push your hips to the right. And then you're going to reach your right arm up and over. So when you get all of that in place, what you should feel is this right outer hip and outer thigh is stretching a little bit. Take one more breath here. It's also a nice side bend, by the way. And then come all the way up. And we'll just go the other way. So you'll step your left foot behind your right foot. Both legs are straight, your feet are flat. Do the best you can. Try and rotate that left hip forward again. And then you're gonna actually put your right hand on your right hip, push the hips to the left, and reach with your left arm. So you're trying to get some stretch in that outer hip, and then come back to the center and release. From here, we're going to take one final yogic squat. I will leave it up to you whether you have a wide stance or a narrow stance. but please, please, please keep those feet parallel. We're trying to stretch out the glutes now and not tighten the outer hips. So if you have a pretty decent squat, this one should feel a little easier. If you need to support yourself because of knee issues, please do. We're going to be here for 3 full breaths. Now, those of you that are not close to the ground, just find your way to a seated position. If your buns are pretty far down, just let them finish finding the mat and extend your legs. Find your sit bones. And just like that, we're in Dandasana, staff pose. So take a moment with a nice straight spine and just kind of check in. You should notice things are feeling a little different around your hips and thighs. Just kind of make note of that. Check in with your breathing and your thoughts and your emotions. And then just keep both legs straight and really gently, however it feels best to you, lean out over both legs. Just stretch for a moment. And then I'd like you to keep your right leg straight. Bring your left foot to the inside of your right thigh. Lean out over your right leg. Just take a moment here. Now notice when you do this, that really your spine more or less is aligned over your right leg. That's an important thing to notice because we're going to do that again. But first I want you to come up. Now what I want you to do is just use your right hand, wherever it was, your calf, your foot, whatever. Lengthen yourself out with your spine aligned over your right leg. Promise yourself not to change that at all. And then bring your left hand to the center of your left thigh and just start to press on it, which means your torso might actually move a little more to the right. You'll feel a little bit of an outer hip, inner thigh thing happening. And then come on up and just pick your left foot up and bring it across your right thigh with your foot flat. Left hand behind you and just come into a nice deep twist. So again, it just kind of depends upon you, but you should get a little bit of sensation, in this case, in your left outer hip. And honestly, right now is saying thank you because it's been working pretty hard so far. Bring your left leg back out to meet your right leg. Feel free to wiggle the legs if you need to. And then keep your left leg straight. Bring your right foot to the inside of your left thigh. Forget about everything. Just lean out over your left leg. Take a breath or two here. Notice that as you do lean out, though, that you're literally aligned over your left leg, that that's where your body is. And then come back up because we're going to replicate that, but we're just going to use the left hand to grab whatever and align our spine over the left leg. Don't let that change. Bring your right hand to the center of your right thigh and just begin to press on that leg. It might even make your torso drift to the left. That's okay. At this point, you should be feeling some inner outer hip and thigh action on that right side. Take one more breath. And then come on up and just pick your right foot up and bring it across your left thigh with your right foot flat. Right hand behind you and come into your twist to the right. Again, maybe you can get a little bit of sensation in that right outer hip. It's definitely appreciating the lengthening that's happening here. And unwind. Bring your right leg beside your left leg and feel free to give them a little wiggle. We're going to bring the soles of the feet together. You don't have to pull them super close in, but just moderately close to you. Soles of the feet together. Once you get them set where you want them, bring your hands right behind your backside. We're back to using the outer hip and thigh muscles. We're going to press our knees away from the hips and reach them strongly for the ground, just using the muscular strength of our outer hips and thighs. Take a couple of breaths here. So you're really engaging right about where your thigh meets your hip. So there are some muscles there. Obviously your abduction muscles, which are your gluteus medius, tensor fasciae latae. There's a few of those. There's all sorts of cool stuff happening, but you should feel tightening. That's what you should feel. Good. Now we're going to keep the knees wide and just let the legs extend. Take a moment to make sure you're actually on your sit bones. You may keep your hands behind you if you need to. And you want to keep your feet active, tops of the thighs active, feet flexed, toes pointing straight up. And then either hands stay behind you or they come in front of you or grab the feet or the legs. You lengthen your spine forwards. We don't round the back. We don't want to look like a turtle here. We just want to pull our chest forward. Keep those legs and feet active and just breathe. And so you're keeping everything active, which means muscles are tight and the inner thighs are stretching. Why are we doing that? It's called an active stretch. We're keeping this stuff tight because if we just let it all go soggy and loose and then we load our body weight on it, there's always a potential for injury. But if we stay mindful and keep everything engaged, then it keeps us safe. We are here for 3 more breaths. As you come back up, you can help your legs together. Give them a good wiggle. And then finally, you can roll onto your back, hug your knees into your chest. Yay, hooray, and rock side to side. So again, coming back to allowing the outer hips to have their moment to stretch and release. We'll bring the feet flat, knees bent, but I want you to take your feet really wide. So ideally your feet should be outside the edges of your mat. Your feet should actually be on the floor. Always be mindful of knee issues. Before we do anything else, I want you to just make sure that you keep your shoulder blades flat. So we're going to stay honest in this today. Gently, slowly, taking your time, let both knees drop to the left and just wait for a moment. Right shoulder blade stays flat. I want you to notice where you feel this. So you should feel a little bit in the right outer hip. You might feel it in the top of the thigh. If you feel it in the right side of your low back, I want you to try and get your right glute a little flatter. If you're not feeling it in your back, you're fine. Now, if you want to feel more and you have a happy, healthy right knee, then you can put your left foot on top of the right knee, relax the leg, and just let that be some leverage. But I really want you to keep that right shoulder blade flat. This helps protect your back. We're really just trying to get the iliotibial band. That's that right outer hip strip of connective tissue. There's some muscles there that I named earlier. All of those are lengthening here. It shouldn't be intense, and it most certainly should not be uncomfortable. So kind of monitor yourself. We're here for a few more breaths. These muscles worked really hard. They deserve this break. So if your left foot is on top of the right knee, take it off. Bring it back outside the left side of the mat. Both knees point up. And then we take our time. We make sure our left shoulder blade stays flat. And we start to drop both knees to the right. Pause for a moment. We never want to rush into this. We check and make sure that we're feeling it in the left outer hip or a little bit in the top of the left thigh, not in the left side of the low back. Then we decide if we want to put the right foot on the left knee or not. If you do, let that right foot cross on top of the left knee and just relax. If you have sensitive knees, don't put a foot on top of the knee, and also keep your ankles flexed. Once you find that comfortable sensation in your left outer hip and thigh, simply relax and breathe. One more breath here. If your right foot is on the left knee, take it off. I'd like you to put it back outside the mat. So we're going to have the feet wide still, but now just prop your knees together. And if you need to walk the feet in a little bit so the knees can prop, do that. Some of you might be flexible enough that you can have your knees propped together and walk your feet wider. That's cool. So what you should feel is a little bit of a different sensation in the outer hips. We're going to hold this for just another couple of breaths. And then just hug your knees in. Rock side to side. And then we're just going to transition this into a really gentle, happy twist. Just keep your knees bent and together and in the air, and just let them drop over to the right. Let your left arm open out to the left. Don't worry about whether your knees are stacked. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Just let your feet relax. Let your head turn to the left if that feels okay. So we're just giving the spine time to neutralize. Now, having said that, you've done a lot of outer hip stuff, so you might feel some happiness in your left outer hip, and if that's the case, awesome. But if you're not feeling anything there, it's okay. Just take a couple breaths. And then on your next inhale, we'll just bring the knees back up. And as you exhale, drop them over to the left. And again, don't worry, we're not going for precision here. We just want the body to be happy. So if your knees aren't stacked, no worries. If your hips aren't stacked, no worries. Are you relaxed? Are you comfortable? Are you happy? Those are the things that you should concern yourself with right now. One more breath here. And then on your next inhale, bring your legs back up. And as you exhale, you can just kind of rock side to side. Now, what I'm going to suggest that we do, and this doesn't have to be like at all vertical, and for some of you, it's just going to be a no-no. If you can do any semblance of a shoulder stand, which means if you can get your buns into your hands, we're golden. But what about if you can't? If you have a block, you can put your hips on a block and you can still do what we're going to do. We're just going to let gravity help us with our inner thighs. So if you can hike your hips into your hands, you're going to do that. And it doesn't matter if you're vertical or not. You don't have to put stress at the shoulders or neck. If you can't get your hips into your hands, try and get your buns on a block. And if you can't do that, just stick your legs in the air. And then all I want you to do is just let them drop open into a nice wide V. So we're just giving gravity the opportunity to help us out here. Take a few breaths. If you've got your legs wide, keep the knees wide and bring the soles of the feet together. And then just bring your knees together and slowly roll on out of that. Hug the knees in. Now we're going to grab the outside edges of our feet and happy baby. And you might find it feels a little different today. You've done a lot of inner outer thigh work. So as you maybe play with straightening and bending legs and all of that, you might think, things feel pretty good in there today. If there's something that's still tight or tense in the hips or inner thighs, this is a great place to take care of it. So I'm going to give you about 6 more breaths to just play around in your happy baby. Do anything else you need to do. When you feel like you're ready, bring the soles of your feet together on the mat and let your knees drop open. Obviously, another inner thigh stretch, but it's very passive this time. Just take a couple of breaths here. And then on your next inhale, let the knees come together, pointing at the ceiling. And then as you exhale, drop the legs open again. As you inhale, bring the knees together. As you exhale, drop the legs open. Do that a couple more times. And then the next time the knees drop open, kind of like our start position, you'll keep them there because we're going to lengthen the spine. The next time you breathe in, press your low back into the mat. You're kind of scooping your pubic bone up towards the ceiling to create that little bit of pelvic tilt to take the curve out of the spine. The next time you breathe out, let go. Let all the tension leave your body. And then one more time as you inhale, tilt your pelvis back, press the low back into the mat, and then release. Extend your legs. Now, once you decide where your feet are going to be, closer together or farther apart, and you might just notice, really notice, because most of us like to kind of splay our legs out. But you've already had a lot of outer thigh and hip action. Just play with what does it feel like to have your legs closer together today. You may not want that, but just don't go into a normal pattern without testing out all your options. Once you get your legs the distance apart that you want them, I recommend you roll them in and out a few times, meaning from your hip, your thigh. Just kind of do a little internal, external rotation and then let them flop. And then allow your spine to lengthen, shoulders relax, hands come below the height of the shoulders, palms up, neck is long. Create some space between your teeth so your jaw is relaxed. Allow your eyelids to just gently close, forehead smooth. Big inhale through the nose. Big sigh, to release any remaining tension in your body. Just settle in to a sweet, sweet Shavasana. And as your body relaxes and your breath slows down and gets gentle and shallow and quiet, I want you to just pay attention to your breathing for a moment. Today, I invite you to work with mantra, which can also be affirmation or prayer, as you focus on your breathing. So choose either a single word that is positive or a very short phrase, or you can choose something neutral, like a syllable, like the word Om, that maybe has no connotations to you. It just needs to be either positive or neutral. And then I want you to just coordinate it with your breathing. So you're aware of inhaling, and then when you exhale, You mentally say to yourself your single word that's positive, or your short phrase or prayer that's positive, or your neutral syllable. And then you're aware of your next inhale. And then as you exhale, again, you repeat your word or your phrase. And you just stay linked to your breath and your mantra. If you notice that your mind wanders, that's okay. Just come back to awareness of your breath and begin coordinating your exhale with your mantra. I'd like you to just let the word or phrase that you've been mentally repeating dissolve. Just let it disappear. And for the next couple of breaths, try not to let anything else take its place. So we're not resisting thoughts, and we're also not initiating thoughts. We're just allowing the breath to be the only point of focus. And then start to feel back into your body, your muscles, your bones, your organs, your joints, your skin. Feel it all. And then start to breathe a little deeper. Start to move the fingers and toes a little bit. Take a really deep breath in. Spread your fingers and toes. Exhale with a sigh through the mouth, relaxing the fingers and toes, and then inhaling even deeper and just stretching. And as you relax, exhale with a sigh. You may either just bend your knees with your feet flat on the floor, or you can hug your knees in. And when you feel like you're ready, roll to your right side and pause for a moment. And just use the left hand in front of the chest and press yourself up into sitting. And so finding that comfortable, steady asana, which you now know means seat as well as pose, you come into that. You might notice it's a little easier to have that straight and aligned spine, because not only have you done all of this relaxation and breath work and softening, but the inner outer thighs have changed. You don't have the same hips and inner outer thighs that you had when you started in practice. So if you're cross-legged and you're a little more open, that's what you did. Well done. So for our breath work today, we're going to be doing Surya Bharana, which is a solar breath. We're doing that because tomorrow is a full moon. And so that means there's a lot of lunar energy, and we balance that by bringing in some solar energy. So you can use any finger of your right hand, I don't mind which, but you do use the right hand. And you're just gonna block your left nostril. We're gonna keep it simple. You're gonna inhale and exhale through the right nostril every time. So you're just gonna block off the left side and just breathe through the right. Now, my request would be, if you can and you're comfortable with it, make that right nostril breath a 1-to-2 ratio breath, meaning your exhale would be twice as long as your inhale. But if that's just too much for you to deal with, just inhale and exhale through the right side. If you happen to be stopped up on your right side, the right nostril, then you can ignore me, but imagine that you're breathing in and out the right side as you use both nostrils. For most of us though, we're going to use any finger of the right hand, block the left nostril, and you're going to do hopefully a 1-to-2 ratio breath through the right side only. So you're blocking the left side, you're breathing in and out, right side only. Off you go. Finish out the breath you're on, and as you do, just let your right hand rest down and just kind of pause. If you are able to tune in to kind of the subtle nuances of breath, you might notice that your right nostril is now more open than your left. That means your right nostril is now dominant. So good job. And if you can't tell, don't worry about it. It's not important. But just take a moment to kind of revel in how you feel as a result of your entire practice. So tomorrow's full moon also marks Guru Purnima, which is a time in the yoga world where lineages are honored. So I'll be honoring my teacher and his teachers and his teacher's teachers, etc. So you might think about that tomorrow. If you happen to look up the full moon, you might just send a little word of thanks to all the ancient yogis that have brought this tradition forward for us. So let's bring our palms together in gratitude. Gratitude for our practice today. Gratitude for this practice as a whole, this art and science of yoga. I don't know what I would do without it. So just really gratitude for all the yogis. And I mean that paying it forward too. Gratitude for all of you yogis, because the more yoga we do, the better place this world is. So thank you to you. Take one more huge inhale through the nose. Big sigh through the mouth. We bring our palms together to our foreheads, and it just reminds us to be present. When we're present, we can be grateful. We bring our palms together in front of our lips, and it reminds us to speak our truth and to also verbally say thank you. We bring our palms together to our hearts, and this reminds us to keep our hearts open, always open, always. Practicing kindness, practicing compassion, practicing love, and making sure that we turn some of that towards ourselves. Again, thank you guys so much for being here with me. Namaste.